Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Today we'll be plunging into the world of women linked to the Islamic State group and notably to the leader of its self-declared caliphate, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. My guest is the journalist, author and filmmaker Sofia Amara, and she has for years now been investigating his life and his path to the head of the terror organisation through reporting in Iraq, Syria and Lebanon. And her latest book, Baghdadi, the Caliph of Terror, has just been published here in France. Sofia Amara, thank you very much for being with us today here on France 24. Now, I want to start off this interview by showing some pictures of an interview, a filmed interview that you conducted with an ex-wife of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, a woman named Sajja. Now, we can imagine that this was a very dangerous and very complicated interview to organise. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, definitely. It took weeks to organize it and to be sure that the crew wouldn't fall in a trap or be in danger, because this woman lives in a refugee camp where the Lebanese army doesn't enter, and she didn't want us in because she didn't want people to notice anything. And she said that at that time she said that she was threatened by Baghdadi, who wanted to take back her daughter, their daughter, that I met there. She looks very much like her dad, because the mother got married again. And so we had to take her out of there and be sure that we were not followed by any ISIS fan who could, try to prevent her from talking to French journalists and French crew. So that was the first danger and the first thing to take care of. The second thing was to be sure that herself was not a danger, because her sister is considered, her name is Dua ad-Dulaimi, is considered to be the first suicide bomb lady in Iraq, because by 2006, 2007, she tried to kill herself using, a belt in Erbil and Sulaymaniyah in Iraq, with the green light of her dad. And she didn't succeed, and she was jailed in Erbil. She spent 10 years, and where I met her in prison, and she just got out of prison a few weeks ago. In June, actually.
Because many members of this woman, Sajja, the ex-wife of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, you go, in your book, you go through some of the members of their family and their links to various jihadist groups. So given that, how credible did you find her testimony? She talked about only being married to al-Baghdadi for a few months and before the Islamic State group was formed. How credible did you find her?
I didn't count only on her to get the information. As our job as journalists and researcher is to take her testimony and then to double check it with the authorities, with the judges, the tribunal members that have been in charge of the trial against her, because she was jailed in Syria and jailed in Lebanon twice with her kids. And the most interesting information I got from her was not during the official interview, but during offs. Which means while I met her without a camera, because I met her like 10 times after the interview.
You had lengthy discussions with her.
Yes, yeah. Time to discuss with her. And then I understood how important she was and how, discreet she remained during the official interview, because she's still scared of her ex-husband. She's afraid to have troubles with the Lebanese authorities. And what's more, she wants to come to Europe. I think she has no chance whatsoever, and she believes that when she'll be in Europe, she can say everything.
Well, one day, if she ever does get to European soil, that would indeed be quite an interview. But what did you learn from her in your conversations, your interview with her, about Baghdadi and about the role of women in his jihadist organizations at the time?
I'm going to be a little bit rude, but I'm going to say exactly her own words. She said, concerning religion, I'm bitcher than he is, because I know religion much more than he does. He only went to university to study how to read Quran, but he doesn't understand Quran. That was amazing. And she also said, I could have been the first lady of the caliphate, but I left him because I prefer freedom. What I learned from her is that, first of all, ISIS has given more than any terrorist organization before, jihadi organization, an important role for women. Not all women, because most of them were slaves. Most of them were just, things. They were not even considered as a human being. But concerning her, I understood, and I really realized that to ISIS and to these jihadis, women can have a role and considered as human being if they are part of the battle. It doesn't mean that they have to carry guns, but they have a role to educate their kids. There was a guide for the mothers from ISIS, telling them, as when they are 6 or 7 years old, give them plastic guns, do this and that and that. So women have a role if they participate to the jihad and to build what his so-called caliphate.
Assistance to jihad, I
yes,
think you call them in your book. But of course, there were different layers, different rankings of women inside the Islamic State group. So his ex-wife there, Sajja, clearly one of the elite women.
Because of her tribal role also, because she belongs to a very important tribe in Iraq, but also because of her family's role, because her brothers and his father were jihadis way before Baghdadi was known. Actually, he was a teacher. He studied Islam, and then he was a teacher, and he was looking for a role. I mean, he wanted to be a lawyer, and he wanted to be a soldier. I mean, should have he succeeded, maybe he would have never been in ISIS. So her brothers and her father were more legitimate than her husband even.
So it was a marriage of building alliances.
Exactly.
We can think that.
Definitely.
If we look down at the other end of the scale, some of the women who were seen as untouchables, slaves, sex slaves, and we've heard accounts from Yazidi women who were held by ISIS. You yourself interviewed some young Yazidi women who were former sex slaves of al-Baghdadi himself, who were held captive by him in his compounds, in houses where he was living. I mean, their testimonies really show his personal brutality, don't they?
Exactly. Not only that. I mean, I met these two girls and who escaped and are in Germany now, and who lived with Baghdadi, who saw him living, escaping from a house to another, from a city or a village to another. And not only it shows it's his brutality and his true beliefs. He believes that he has the right to take girl. He sold one of them. She was 15 years old to his father-in-law. And she was raped by the father-in-law of Baghdadi after being in Baghdadi's house. She was 15, and one of them was even, witness of the horror. Kyla Miller, American hostage, went through, raped by Baghdadi so many times. And she was heard by the CIA, by the way, after I interviewed her. And it shows also that Baghdadi, after all, this man who led the world in really a real chaos and mass, he was sitting there and spending all his time, trying to push these small little girls to read Quran correctly. So this is so pathetic.
Just a reminder for our viewers, they were seeing the picture behind you of Sofia Amara, a US-American hostage, former aid worker, who was held alongside these young Yazidi girls before being killed in a bombing, a coalition bombing, we believe, inside Islamic State territory there.
And one of my witnesses, called Rosa, in the book, she became a mother to her. She said, come, escape with me. We need to go. He raped you. And, Kyla used to come back from the next room, crying. And they took her and say, okay, we're gonna put some makeup. The Sayyaf, the lady,
one of the women inside.
Definitely inside ISIS. One of very, very important woman. One of a woman brain of ISIS. And she used to tell her, let's escape together. And said, I'm an American. If I go out, they will catch me very quickly. You go alone because you have more chances to succeed. And the poor girl died under the bomb, whereas she went in Syria just to help and save others.
I want to widen out the interview before we come to an end, unfortunately. You haven't only investigated Baghdadi's relationships with various women, but also his whole path, his trajectory. From your sources in the region, where do you believe he is now? Do you believe he's still alive? Obviously, there were many reports in the past that he been killed. Lots of credible reports saying he'd been injured. What are your sources telling you?
I've been contacted many times last summer, actually, because it was given as dead, and I always denied it because my sources say he is still alive. He was injured many times, indeed, but he is still alive, according to Iraqi intelligence sources I've been in contact with since 2016, more than 2 years, and they say he's in Syria and in the Deir ez-Zor region.
So in eastern Syria, near the Iraqi border.
Northern eastern Syria, and he's there. His boy, though, has been killed, Hudayfa, his elder boy, in Homs a few months ago, but Baghdadi is still alive. Of course, he lost many of his men, but he's still alive. And I can tell you, because I had to have a confirmation 2 days ago, that ISIS is still holding this place, this region in northern Syria. And we have some hostages there, even a French little girl who is trying to come back to France, and it's impossible because ISIS is still taking the place. And
they still have a presence on the ground. I'm afraid we do have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us, Sofia Amara. They're the journalist and author of Baghdadi, the Caliph of Terror. Thanks for joining us for the France 24 interview. See you next time.
Eye on Africa, presented by Georgia Calvin-Smith.
Africa News, your eyes on Africa. Bringing you the latest from across the continent.
Eye on Africa, on France 24 and France24.com.